And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Great show today. Call Jan with your questions at 888 Car Clinic. She'll put you in the queue, and I will put you on the air. On the line with us now is Matt Eaton, Manager for Maintenance Products at Denso Auto Parts. Matt, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you in the house.
We're glad to be here.
Share with our Car Clinic listeners and viewers, how have spark plugs changed through the years?
Well, spark plugs used to be made with copper and nickel on the center electrode tip. Later, they started using precious metals like platinum, and finally now they're using iridium, which is the strongest. Also, the shape has changed a bit as space became a commodity in the engine compartment. The diameters of the spark plugs have been reduced. From 18 now, they're around 12 millimeters is the typical size.
So the actual physical size of spark plugs, and you mentioned 18, reminds me of the FE Ford. We raced Fords before we got into the Hemi, and sure enough, that was a huge spark plug. You could put your thumb in the hole when you removed it. So when manufacturers, when they changed the combustion and the combustion chamber, they reduced the size. So your property, and not only Denso's, but every spark plug manufacturer's property got smaller, and so that's the main reason for the smaller spark plug. What's the typical lifespan of a spark plug?
The typical lifespan now is for the OE plugs just around 100,000 miles. Of course, back then spark plugs had a typical life of around 30,000, and then when the platinum came along, it became around 60,000, and again now with the iridium, it's about 90 to 100,000 in most cases.
And Matt, isn't it true to say that in too many cases, and this is perhaps earlier on as the mileage started to increase, the change interval with spark plugs, I saw many cars in our Car Clinic Service pre-repair automotive service shop that the spark plug may well last 60, 80, 100,000 miles, but there were other supporting parts of that vehicle that would not. And so it took a while before, and even to this day, coils and coil-over plugs, sometimes the plug will outlast the electronics that drive the plug. Have you seen that happen?
Oh, it happens, absolutely. Spark plugs now, again, when they were the 30,000 mark, that 30,000 change interval was pretty typical. Everybody would go in and get the preventive maintenance done at 30,000. Now with the spark plug lasting longer, I mean, you're just seeing all these other components fail first, and the spark plug really isn't that frequent maintenance item anymore.
We're talking with Matt Eaton, Manager for Maintenance Products at Denso Auto Parts. Matt, let's shift gears and talk about the use of Iridium. Tell Car Clinic audiences what makes this a better spark plug.
Well, Iridium is highly resistant to heat, voltage wear, and corrosion. And actually, it's in the platinum family of metals, and it's one of the hardest and durable metals in the world. Iridium enables the manufacturer to make very small diameter center electrodes, and these small electrodes mean that there's less voltage for the plug to fire, and the ignition becomes more concentrated, and faster flame propagation occurs.
So it's all about converting air-fuel mixture into heat and burning that mixture that drives that piston that drives the wheels. Let's shift gears again. Are Denso's Iridium-TT Spark Plugs only for the performance-minded vehicle owners, or can anyone benefit?
No, absolutely. Anyone can benefit. As we said, the Iridium-TT lasts over 100,000 miles, so we're beating out most of the current OE. The replacement cycles seem to be getting longer, but we're probably at the end of the realistic expansion of that replacement cycle. But also, there's the optimal performance, which comes with the twin-tip design, and that's really the key. Those two tips allow for very little interference for that flame propagation, and that little interference allows that flame to grow, and when you have a better flame growth, you have better fuel economy, you have a better burn, you have better performance, and of course, that leads to better emissions as well when you're burning up everything.
You mentioned the twin tips, and again, the Denso TT, the TT stands for twin tips. Tell us what those tips are made of and how the structure is created there at Denso.
Well, the Iridium-TT center electrode is made with an iridium fine point, and that point is 0.4 millimeters in diameter. and that's the world's smallest electrode, and that's achievable by using Denso's proprietary iridium alloy. And on the ground electrode, there is a platinum needle-like protrusion coming from the ground electrode to meet up with that center electrode. And essentially, those two needles open up that area where the spark ignites, and open area and that less interference is really what contributes to the flame growth.
And Matt, that brings you out another question from a technical standpoint. Many of my Car Connect listeners, they're interested in new products, but they're on the technical side as I. You mentioned interference a couple times. What is interference? Explain how that interferes. Explain how a spark could interfere with lighting a fire.
Okay, well, that's actually, think of it like in the old design, you have this very large center electrode and a very large diameter ground electrode as well, and a very tight space there. And what happens is, when the spark ignites, those big pieces of metal essentially absorb that spark energy. And of course, once you're absorbing that energy and moving it, into the metals of the spark plug, you're going to reduce your flame propagation, and that's the key.
That makes a lot of sense. So, in essence, we have the smallest diameter center electrode at 0.4 millimeters. It's made of an iridium alloy. How does Denso connect that small tip to the rest of the center electrode that goes up to the spark plug wire and the coil?
Well, we actually developed a patented 360-degree laser welding technology. We've been using it for decades in the OE arena, but it's now, of course, available in our aftermarket line, Iridium-TT, as well.
And folks, the OE is the original equipment. That's the car makers of the world. Right. So Denso has been supplying car makers for years. This technology now has come to the aftermarket with a Denso TT Spark Plug. I guess my final question, Matt, where can our Car Connect listeners and viewers go for more information?
Well, you can go to the Iridium site. It's called DensoTT.com. That's the direct site, or our corporate site is DensoAftermarket.com.
Matt, thank you so much. This is very interesting. We are currently testing spark plugs in a 2015 STI high-performance vehicle, and we will get back with our audiences and give a report at a little bit later date when we have some data to share with everyone. But in the meantime, folks, you can go to DensoTT.com for more information. Matt Eaton, Denso Auto Parts. Matt, thank you so much for joining us on Bobby Likis Car Connect today.
Thank you for the opportunity.